welcome to the Omen Path podcast. Dom, my friend, how you doing?
Good, thanks. Yeah.
Good.
Exciting times.
Exciting times. We've got lots to talk about today. We have a very special returning guest today. Wally from ChadMagic. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for inviting me on. It's my first time on since the name change, so excited to get stuck in and talk some Magic the Gathering.
It is, yeah. Well, we've got plenty to get stuck into.
We just.
Dom, first of all, what have you been up to Magic the Gathering wise recently?
I got absolutely slapped at the Aether Drift pre-release. That about sums it up recently.
Yeah, some problematic plays Friday night when we last played with some communal friends as well.
Oh yes, yeah. Sad times.
Sad times. Yeah, we got rolled over quite a bit, Wally.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, I actually missed Aether Drift pre-release, unfortunately, but I've heard that green's very strong in the limited format. So if I ever go that way, then I'll just do mono green because why not?
Exactly.
I made the mistake of trying to force Tamir because I opened loot as my promo. But yeah, I should have just gone Selesnya from the start because I had the white green Gear Hulk, which is actually really good.
It's a good card. That I mean, whenever I open like a limited pool or a seal pool, I just think, how am I forcing black today? That's always my attitude.
I do the same with blue. It's fine, Wally. I do the exact same thing.
Different people play Magic in different ways, and that's okay.
Yeah. I'm the filthy, dirty blue player, and you're the dark, emo black player.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So today's podcast, we have got loads to talk about. Since the last podcast, there's been lots of spoilers, lots of previews. Some of it has gone under the radar, although it really shouldn't have. And then we're going to talk about these sets in general and how we feel about it moving forward, going into Commander, and just in a general. But before we get into that, Wally, tell us about your one half of the ChadMagic duo. Tell us a little bit about how ChadMagic's doing and what you've got up and coming. And also, tell us about Chicago, because that looked amazing, apart from your issues with the airliner, but of course.
Oh, well, I'll touch on the issue of the airline, but I've got bit of PCSD there. But no, some really exciting stuff with the channel happening at the moment. Obviously, we're going about our business, releasing our Commander content roughly every 2 weeks and things like that. But we've had some really interesting meetings today, specifically, just before recording this podcast, about expanding some of the relationships that we've got, bringing in some new relationships to effectively what we want to do is upgrade the quality of the content, which means investing a bit more money into our studio that we moved into in September. So I specifically want to upgrade the lighting, and Christian wants to upgrade the cameras. So we'll do both of that ideally. We're also looking to take on an editor as well to take some of that work away from me and Christian, so we can focus on a bit more of the other aspects of the channel, like the community building that's really important to us. Because Christian and I, we probably both mentioned it when we've been on the podcast in the past, we are not tech people, we are not media people. So the editing aspect of it, which is obviously really important to Commander gameplay, is the bit that we are both least good at and also least happy to do. So 2.5 years into the channel, if we can find someone who can do that to a better standard than us and crucially do it instead of us, then quite an exciting time. So fingers crossed those things start to come, and no doubt there'll be announcements hopefully coming in due course. But Chicago. So this is all prefaced by the fact that we got to Chicago and I got a text on my mobile phone saying, "We're very sorry, but your baggage didn't make it." This was because we connected from Manchester and that flight was delayed by about 20 minutes. So me and Christian had to mad sprint across the airport to get to the connecting flight. They helped us through security and all that sort of stuff. But obviously the baggage didn't quite make it, which was particularly annoying because we got onto the flight to Chicago from Heathrow, and that was then stuck on the ground for 40 minutes. Something to do with or not closing. So it's really dumb. And then, so we got to Chicago, got that message that I mentioned. And when we got to Chicago, the bag was actually already in the air because it was put onto the British Airways flight that came like 6 hours after us or something.
Okay.
Right.
So we got to Chicago at 3 p.m. The bag got to Chicago at 6:45 p.m. We did not receive the bag until about an hour before we left to go to the airport on the Monday.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is a level of incompetence. I mean, I work for a business where you relentlessly pursue doing what you need to do for your customer. And I just cannot for the life of me fathom how that bag sat in Chicago airport from when it arrived on Thursday evening through Friday, through Saturday, through Sunday, through most of Monday. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to focus too much on that because what I will say is all of our filming rig was in the bag, the cameras and cards were in our hand luggage. And I just want to give a big shout out to the members of the Magic community who helped us get a rig together to film with.
Yep.
We were assisted by probably 5 or 6 other creators, and I was just really humbled by the kindness and also the flexibility of the guests that we got on the show, who were able to move things around, various bits and pieces, some of them very busy, to allow us to basically film 3 pods back to back on the Sunday of the convention, which is actually really good fun and saved us a lot of time in the setup. So that might just be how we do things in the future, just do it all in one day. So some lessons to be learned there. But I'll also, without going into too much detail of one of the games that we filmed with the Howling Salt Mine.
Oh, wow, amazing.
They're another am I allowed to mention other podcasts on this?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I really, actually, I listen to the Howling Salt Mine, and I love their stuff. I think it's fantastic.
So they're a really cool podcast. For those who haven't listened, definitely listen to the rest of this and all of Alex and Dom's back catalogue, and then go on to listen to the Howling Salt Mine.
You're a good man.
Because they see, I'm repping you here.
You're a good man.
We specifically put a pod together that was designed to be as salty as possible.
Oh, yeah.
So I was on Tergrid. Christian was on the Jingataxius from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, the one that counts.
Yeah.
We had somebody on Guy Ruder Clones, that was Sam, and then Tony was on a Steal Your Creatures deck. And this isn't a spoiler because we're going to use this fact in the marketing for the episode when it comes out tomorrow, 5th of March. At one point, there were 3 Tergrids on the board controlled by different players. Same time, there were 15 Guy Ruders and 2 Ristic Studies.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Okay.
That's wild. I love it.
It was wild. It was crazy. And it was probably the most fun I've had in a game of Commander for years.
Nice.
Because guess what? It turns out that when you agree and set expectations for a game of Commander and you all abide by those agreements and expectations, you actually have a really fun time.
Yeah.
Who knew it?
Sounds like everyone was on their bracket 4 decks.
Well, I don't know if it was bracket 4 or anything like that. It was just specifically, let's bring the salt. Let's just be really spiteful, really petty, and really nasty to each other. And it was, those guys rock. And we had a really fun time. And I think what we're going to try and do is make the salt pod something that we run back whenever we get the chance to hang with Tony and Sam in the future.
Yeah, mate.
So I'm already brewing my Sen triplets deck. So we'll see how we go.
Oh, it's a classic Salt Commander, that one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But the con in general, I mean, these things, they've really nailed the formula for it now. And I was saying to Alex before the pod started, last time we went to Chicago for a Magic Con, we saw those pictures of people playing Commander pods on the floor, which is, it's just not what you want. What they had this year was a massive downstairs area. So if you've been to cons before, you'll know that Amsterdam had the big area to the side where the organised events were. There was a similar thing here downstairs in Chicago, which is a new room they didn't have last year. So there was just acres and acres of tables for open play. Awesome. The only criticism I will have is that there was only one place to buy coffee, which is wild. But besides that, great con. Big shout out.
Killing.
Well, yeah, it was Dunkin' Donuts and they closed early, which was the bizarre thing.
What?
But yeah, I know. I don't want to go into it because I mean, it's probably put a negative spin on what was actually a really, really good convention experience. I think they've really started to get it right, and the incorporation of Dungeons and Dragons into it as well.
Yeah, that was really
is bringing new people there. And what was good to see is they had creators like Tabletop Jocks actually doing sort of very short one shots. So I think you'd book on and you'd do a D&D campaign that lasted an hour to 2 hours or something like that. And they'd in the process of that teach you how to play, give you an idea of why we play. So I think that was really cool. I didn't get a chance to do it, unfortunately, because me and Christian were effectively working. But I think if I go to maybe a European con where we're not sort of so pedal to the metal doing stuff, I'd like to get involved in that because I enjoy DMing, I enjoy playing D&D. So it might be something we look to do in the future. But yeah, big shout out to the Wizards of the Coast team. They absolutely nailed it once again. Please bring it back to Europe soon.
Oh God, yeah. I was living in hope that when they were talking about this year's cons, the tail end of last year, I looked and there was a bit of a gap, and I thought, well, there might be a European one in there, but the more we get into it, the more it feels like it's not happening. So
I think if it was happening in 2025, we'd know about it.
Yeah, I think we'd know about it, which is, I think, is a real shame, and I hope they do bring back European cons. I've absolutely loved them. I mean, I loved Vegas last year; it was incredible. I'm looking to do some more this year, definitely. But there is just something about a European con that it's just they're very similar, but they're run so well. They've got a great vibe to them. I mean, they all do, but they have really started to nail this con format now, haven't they? Let's be honest.
Yeah, the formula is absolutely nailed down. I think the thing that makes European con preferable to me is the absence of a 10-hour flight or something like that.
Yeah.
So otherwise, I mean, for those listening who've never been to a MagicCon, really try and get there. Apply for the New Perspectives grant, see if you feel you might be applicable to that. I know Rev from War Room EDH went on that to Chicago last week, and he's described it as a life-changing experience. So, yeah. And I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you about it if you were considering applying.
Yeah. We, I think, I was lucky enough to fund myself to go to Vegas last year. I know, obviously, we met and we spoke and we played some games while we were there. Any of these cons, whether it be the ones in America or the European ones, I think if you have any degree of interest in Magic the Gathering and the community and getting together with friends, I literally think it is a must-do scenario. I know not everyone can fly to Vegas, Atlanta, or Chicago, any of these sort of venues, and I do appreciate that. I really, really do. Hence why I think they need to bring back a European cons. But I think it's something that even if you do once, you really should do, because they are phenomenal. They are such good fun. They're entertaining. They are life-changing. You do and see such interesting things surrounded by such lovely community. I mean, it is the perfect scenario for Magic the Gathering and for the players. I think they're fantastic. I love them. I really do.
And you meet people. The Gathering is 2/3 of Magic the Gathering at the end of the day. I mean, I've met you guys for the first time at MagicCon Barcelona. And, friends, hopefully for life since. I don't know, maybe I'll say something that makes us fall out. But yeah, I mean...
Well, you did say you're building Send Triplets deck, so Dom might fall out with you. But...
No, I love Esper.
I love
just not Azorius.
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Shut up, you.
But yeah, I mean, I went to not a Magic Con, but I did go to Comic Con, and they actually had quite a large, because it was the 50th anniversary of D&D, wasn't it, last year, I think. And they had quite a large D&D section there. So I'm wondering, there's no reason why they couldn't have a little, expand it out a little bit and have a Magic bit there. But
100%.
Obviously that remains to be seen. But yeah, they were doing a similar thing at MCM Comic Cons, where they had like one shots, and you could get like special dice for signing up to their email and stuff like that. But
it's really cool.
Yeah.
I think the cons in general, whether it be Magic Cons or like Comic Cons and that type of stuff, they are just they are sort of a bringing together of the community. And I mean, I know there's been the odd negativity in the past, like you said, last year's Chicago, when people were playing on the floor, that is obviously a negativity. But I think actually when most people that attended would look at these scenarios, there is nothing but an overwhelming positivity, because there's not really a lot to not enjoy there. You are there with like-minded people to enjoy the game that we all love. What's not to like?
Exactly.
The people that want to go watch the game night lives are going to go and enjoy it, and they're going to have a fantastic time. The people that want to go to the artist areas and meet the artists and go to the creator areas and meet creators they enjoy watching, and even people that just want to sit down and jam games for 3 days straight. What's not to enjoy? I mean, they're fantastic. I just could not recommend it high enough. 100%.
Yeah,
really. The only problem is
a con or a command fest or something like that.
Yeah. My only difficulty is there's just too much to do. You have to make decisions.
You are right.
You do have to make decisions about what you do. But yeah, there is something there for everyone. So it's just managing your schedule, and they've been quite good, because they have an app where you can.
The app is very good.
Things to your schedule. That makes your life an awful lot easier. 100%. So I'd highly recommend that as well.
100%.
It was a big improvement, that app, wasn't it, once they brought it in?
Yeah.
I mean, what I've started doing now is I don't book onto any events at MagicCon anymore. And that is because obviously Christy and I effectively go to work, so it's hard fitting it all around.
Yep.
But I actually just enjoy jamming games with people. Because, I mean, firstly, like my friends in the careers community like yourselves, it's the only chance at events I really get to play games, so I want to do that. But then people who watch the show want to get a game with us. I mean, there was somebody who built a deck based on a deck that I built on the show like maybe a year ago or something. So signed the commander for them, got absolutely battered by it.
That's cool.
And, I would hope is a memory of the event that they enjoy.
I mean, building that type of community, I mean, it's fantastic, and it's great.
Yeah.
That's it's nice to do these type of things, for your community as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really humbling. Well, when people come up and ask, to take a photo and stuff like that, because
Yeah,
I feel like it's one of those things that I'll never get used to. So
it's very odd, isn't it?
yeah, it's like I'm just a normal dude who occasionally films himself playing Magic. Like it's weird, but it's good to know that you're making people happy and they're enjoying what you're doing. Because ultimately, if that wasn't the case, what's the point?
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. It's all fine and dandy saying, oh, I put it out there and drop it to one side. But like you sort of said, it just, it's very easy to get caught out by it. Someone pings you a message like, I'd love to catch a game with you. Are you going to such and such? And you're like, yeah, I am. Actually, I'd love to catch a game with you. It'd be amazing. Or, they rock up to your, your creator slots and stuff like that. It is humbling, isn't it? And
Yeah.
you're right. You guys are definitely a bit more recognizable than myself. But when people pull you to one side, it's hard to get used to, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll never forget the first time it happened to us. It was in Barcelona, and Chrissy and I were just filming a bit of like B-roll and stuff. And this German kid comes up and asks us to sign his binder.
Yeah.
I was like, firstly, I've never signed a binder before, so that was a new one for me. But like, just the fact that somebody, I mean, we were maybe 2,000 subs at the time.
Yeah.
The fact that somebody recognized us and waited around for us to do what we were doing, and then comes over and very politely asks to get a photo and all that sort of thing. It was mind blowing. And I remember I asked CGB actually in Amsterdam when someone came over to ask for his autograph just before we filmed. I was like, Dan, do you ever get used to this? And he also said no. So apparently that's just going to be a feeling you have forever.
Yeah. Make your peace with it, I suppose, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Good.
Good problem to have.
Well, yeah, exactly. So it sounded like Chicago was good. I'm looking forward to seeing the recordings come out. I'd obviously, like you said, tomorrow will be when one of the first games will come out. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But talking of what's been going on with the cons and whatnot as well, there's been lots of previews from Chicago and whatnot. So let's get stuck right into the meat of the bone. Should we start with Final Fantasy? Wally, what's your experiences with Final Fantasy? Not just in like Magic the Gathering, but the IP in itself.
So I'm going to be honest, it's quite limited. So I'm probably one of the few people who plays Magic who's never really been into Final Fantasy. So I did play. Now this is one of my favorite games of all time, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles on the GameCube.
Okay.
Which was a wild one because it was like a multiplayer game, but you had to bring your Game Boy Advance and that was your controller.
Yeah.
So it was a bit tough to get into because firstly you need friends with Game Boy Advances, which wasn't everybody. In the end, I actually went to CEX and just bought 2 or 3 for like secondhand 20 quid each or something.
Yeah.
And I managed to play with my mates. And so that is my sole experience of Final Fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that the characters that you play with, who I can't remember much of the detail now, aren't actually like the main characters. So obviously the previews came out, and Cloud is the one that I remember, the guy with the big sword or something.
Yeah.
But people are going to be calling me a heathen in the comments, but like I say, Final Fantasy is just not something I've ever really played, and that might be because I've always been a Nintendo boy. So it was only like 5-6 years ago I first got a non-Nintendo console, which was my PlayStation 4. So I've just not had the opportunity to play it. I think is probably the reason.
Very good point. Dom, what's your backstory with Final Fantasy?
Yeah, so it's kind of similar, but I did play Final Fantasy 13, which came onto the Xbox, notably. So, like you're saying, I never had a PlayStation growing up or anything. So, obviously, Final Fantasy 7 is the one, probably the most famous. They've just done the remake, which has come out, and that's got Cloud and Tifa, all the characters that people would probably recognise, even if they're not, au fait with the IP. But yeah, I played 13. So I'm looking forward to like a lightning card at some point, the protagonist from that. And I also played quite a lot of Final Fantasy 14, which is the MMO.
Okay.
So that's probably a lot of people's exposure to it might just be that game, because that's obviously quite different from the others in the series. In that it is massively multiplayer online, like World of Warcraft, right? So you can play with your friends and go and do questing and stuff. It's very similar to World of Warcraft in that regard. So I played that for a while, but yeah, the older games I don't know anything about. So
I'm very similar to yourself, Wally. We did have a PlayStation. I know my brother had one of the Final Fantasies, but classic sort of like it was his console, so I didn't really get a massive amount of use of it, really. but the same as you, Wally, I had Nintendo products quite a bit. Like myself, like one of my first proper consoles to myself was the Super Nintendo, which was awesome. Love that thing.
Great console.
What it really was. So you know, we wouldn't, you know, we had sort of Yoshi's Island and that type of stuff more so than these type of games. So I do find it. It's not my. This is not my cup of tea, Final Fantasy. If I'm brutally honest with you, I'm not as invested as some others. But I do find it very interesting, and I do quite like a lot of the artwork on it. It's that classic. I always think Final Fantasy is. This could be wrong, but I think of it as anime, but not like the over-the-top anime. Do you know what I mean? That we're now starting to get used to. You know, you now think of anime, and you sort of think of, you know, over character, cartoony sort of looking features and that sort of stuff. Whereas actually, I've always enjoyed the artwork for Final Fantasy. I think it's always been quite good. And I'm just looking at some of the cards now, and some of the artworks they're very unique, but very engaging, I think.
I think you find that. Sorry, Wally.
I was going to say, it feels like it really engages with what Final Fantasy is, like in terms of how the art looks for people who, you know, it's got to be recognizable to people who play the game, because ultimately that's who it's trying to appeal to.
100%.
Yeah, I think you'll find, because obviously a lot of the earlier games, they're all pixel art. So actually seeing some of that older pixel art actually interpreted in, you know, Magic's kind of current style will be quite interesting.
Yep.
But it's like looking at the preview pack, it looks like your preview card comes in a packet, and they've shown that, and on the front of that is pixel art. So I'm wondering if they will have, obviously, pixel art versions of some of these characters would be awesome.
Might be a mixture of it,
like kind of the retro arcade throwback style.
That'll be really cool.
Yeah, that'll be.
I love seeing new art styles, because they don't have to be. That's the thing with art; it doesn't have to be for everyone, does it? So
no.
Yeah. It's for the variety.
It's not very often where I look at a new style of art and I think I don't really like that, or I'm quite prepared to see it for what it is and be like, that's fine. I can understand its beauty, but it's not for me, and I'm quite happy to do that. As a rule of thumb, Magic the Gathering art for me is normally like absolute spot on. There's not a lot of it I don't particularly enjoy or particularly like. I think Magic have always had stunning art, and I'd like that to continue. And I feel like with this, they have continued. You know, there is the classic sort of arts. You know, you can look and you can sort of see these are very clearly. Although I don't know massive amount about Final Fantasy, these are clearly characters that I recognise from previous games. So they've hit the ball out of the park in terms of that respect. You know, you don't want people to be like, well, who's that character? I don't recognise that. Oh, it's such and such. Oh, really? But equally, I'm just kind of looking at some of the other cards they've got here. They're still characters, but they still look the artwork looks very Magic the Gathering. So they sort of seem to have melded the two together, which I think that's how you should do it with these sort of things, really.
Yeah, and I think some IPs naturally map quite well onto Magic the Gathering.
Yep.
Lord of the Rings being a really good example of that. Like, you could look at a Lord of the Rings card and think it was any other Magic card. You wouldn't have known it was Universes Beyond.
100%.
And Final Fantasy, I think, is another example of that.
Yes.
To be honest.
Yeah.
It's swords and magic, so it fits in, you know, the occasional gunblade or something like that. But yeah, it is that fantasy kind of, you know, universes mainly. Exactly. And an interesting thing actually they've done, that if you don't know the character, actually on the card it does tell you which game they come from.
Yeah,
that's quite an interesting thing. Yeah, so that's new for this set.
So if you look at the set codes, or normally where they have a set code, it will tell you. So Cloud, there we've got Final Fantasy 7, and then you've got some of the other ones. It's 14. Dom's dead right, and I think that's a really good way of doing it, actually, because there is connection and it's cross games instead of this is Final Fantasy 7 or this is Final Fantasy 10 or whatever it may be. I think it's a fantastic way of doing it. I do really like that, actually.
That's really smart. I mean, I guess the flip side to that as well is if I get a commander that I really like and I think, oh, well, I want to now play this version of Final Fantasy.
Exactly.
I know which one to go and get.
Exactly, which is actually really powerful, because with these cross IPs, obviously the whole idea is that Magic the Gathering can be introduced to Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy can be introduced to Magic the Gathering. So that's the power of it. We saw it with Lord of the Rings. We've seen it with a lot of these cross, and this is now why we're getting a lot more of these. We'll come on to that a little bit later on, but it's really powerful. It's really interesting. Exactly what you've just sort of said. You may go, oh, I really like Cloud X Soldier as my commander. What's he from? Final Fantasy VII. I might give that a try. I've got a bit of time. I've always fancied playing it. I like this character from my card. I'm going to go and invest and play the game, and vice versa. There may be people that play Final Fantasy games religiously, love them, and have been like, "Oh, what's this? What's this Magic the Gathering? Oh, this is interesting. Oh, well, I recognize these cards and I recognize these characters, and that is the power of the crossover IP, which is very powerful, really. Let's be honest."
Absolutely. I mean, Christian plays Standard every Tuesday. That's where he is tonight. We're recording on a Tuesday for those listening. And there's somebody who goes to Standard who got into Magic because of Assassin's Creed, which is funny because it's a modern-only set. But anyway, this person now plays Magic the Gathering week in, week out because Assassin's Creed was printed into it.
That's the power of it.
There you go.
Yep. That is the power of it. But I had an un-Magic the Gathering... a friend that doesn't play Magic the Gathering, doesn't really know anything about it other than I'm involved in the Magic the Gathering community. He had the exact same thing with Lord of the Rings. Now, it wasn't about playing, but he wanted to collect the cards because his love of Lord of the Rings was massive, and that crossover, and he's just like, I really like the artwork. Like, I would like to, and his plan is to collect every single card. Unfortunately, I had to tell him about the 1-of-1 ring, and I was like, "Mate, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get that." And he, bless him, naively sort of said, "Well, what do you mean? Why can't I get hold of it?" I was like, and I just was telling him it's a 1-of-1 of, and blah blah blah. And I sort of said, I told him about the story with Post Malone, and you could see he was a bit like, "Oh, so I'm not going to be able to get every card from the set." I was like, "Push that card to one side, and maybe some of the serialized ones, and then the rest of them you'll be fine with." And he was quite happy with that, but. Yeah, there was a little part of it. You could see it in his eyes, like, oh, not every card in the set.
That's so heartbreaking. I mean, it depends on how you define the entire set, doesn't it? Because obviously there is that particular card art for the One Ring only exists on that one card.
And it is beautiful as well.
It goes
really
hard, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It goes hard. But that's probably in Post Malone's safe deposit box or something. Or actually, it's probably knowing
he wore it as a necklace, didn't he, in the graded thing?
Yeah,
of course he did.
Yeah,
it's such a baller move. Such a baller move.
Why not? Hey, why not?
I was going to say it is quite interesting that we're getting this Final Fantasy crossover because Final Fantasy does actually exist as a card game already.
Yeah, it does.
So they're obviously not afraid to just let's bring it into Magic as well.
I think we've just been talking about the power of crossover IPs, and I think they identify that as well. And you can't blame them. Magic the Gathering itself is an incredibly popular, powerful game and IP. So they probably see as much value of it as, like you said, they've got their own card game, but they still feel comfortable enough to do that. Yeah. Like, can't blame them.
I think you see it with like the mobile phone games as well, where they'll have a crossover with various, you get a new character that comes from different places. I think that's kind of what Universe Beyond is becoming, right?
Heading towards that direction, 100%.
Sure.
The cards in general, I don't know a massive amount about these characters because of my lack of experience, so I'm learning on the fly here. The only one thing that I do know, probably like all of us, is the humongous 1/7 plant that whenever it attacks turn gets plus 9,999 plus 0 to the end of turn. It's the only one real card that I identify from this one. But yeah.
It's so cool. This is from Final Fantasy, obviously. And this famous attack called 10,000 Needles where a giant cactuar would launch this attack at your character and deal them 10,000 damage, and you'd be like, oh, that's just not survivable.
Can we also just mention that Jumbo Cactuar has a moustache? I think that I look at that and I'm like, why has it got a moustache? And I'm like, why hasn't it got a moustache? This is awesome.
Yeah, why not? It's so cool. And I think I said this on Twitter as well. Somebody should make a Damdan out of Jumbo Cactuar.
Oh yeah,
somebody who knows more about Magic than me should just go and do that and make it hilarious.
There's so many shenanigans you can do, like flinging or giving it trample or what have you.
Yeah, I think
deflecting palm.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking,
you could put in there. It would make a perfect kind of Dan style.
100%. Yeah, definitely. Obviously, this card particularly has got a lot of traction. There's normally I think a bit of a meme card, if I'm brutally honest with you. It's my personal opinion. But whereas it is one of those cards where you read it on the face of it and you feel like, oh yeah, I'm going to swing at you with 10,007. Like, but it's a lot more complicated than that. There's the turn dice to removal. Obviously, a 1/1 will chump block it. So there's a lot more to dance through about. But I think it'd be really interesting to see what people do with this. And Dom's already mentioned it. Obviously, you've got fling mechanics and that type of stuff. Trample is a thing. Flying is a
You're
thing.
going to see this in every Xenagos deck, right? Because that gives it trample.
Yeah, it is.
It notably doesn't double its power, or it does from 1 to 2. So you get hit for 10,001 damage instead. But it's the trample, which is the problem.
Yeah,
and haste.
Exactly. And there's,
I mean, you can't block 10,000 trample, can you? Let's be honest.
no, that's
not on a normal board state.
You're going to struggle in most games, I think.
Yeah, it's if it connects, it's gonna be there's not many times where you're gonna take that on the chin and brush it off and be like, is that all you've got, bruh? Do you know what I mean?
Chandra's Ignition is a classic one as well.
Yep.
So you can attack, it gets blocked, and then you cast Chandra's Ignition, it deals 10,000 damage to everything. So that's another good one.
Yeah. I am looking forward to what the community does with this card. Like, as much as I call it a bit of a meme card, I am legitimately looking forward because there's far smarter people than me that will really make this shine, and it'll go hard and it'll be funny, and I am looking forward to that, definitely.
Am I right in thinking that card's going to be in standard as well?
Yeah.
Yep.
There's definitely a standard deck to be built around this for sure. There's got to be something in there. Somebody somewhere is booking a standard deck.
What is the set code on that card if you're looking at it, Alex? Because that'll tell you. Because there are 4 commander decks releasing with this set as well.
Yes.
And they're based around, like, each commander deck is based around one of the games. So you've got a Final Fantasy VII, and then a Final Fantasy 14 as well, and another 2.
So
the set code is FIN.
Yeah, well, you have
So
got that.
that's not the commander set, so that's standard legal.
But you have got other ones. Yeah, you've got certain ones. There'll be FIC, which I'm pretty sure that's a commander. Yeah, it's a commander version. So, look, we'll obviously be talking a bit more when we come to Spider-Man, but obviously there's a lot of these universes beyond. They're going to, half of the sets that are going to be released this year are going to be universes beyond, and they are going to be standard legal. So there's a big push into this. So it'd be interesting. To see what happens. Any notable cards? Other notable cards that you guys want to talk to about before we move on?
I mean, one that I'm quite excited for is Terra Herald of Hope. I've had the card on screen for me because I knew I wouldn't remember that. And it's basically Alesha who smiles at death, but in Final Fantasy. And I like cards like this because it allows you to sort of really abuse some of the rules of the game. And what I know it's a pre-con commander, and Christian's pretty determined to play it when we do eventually do that episode. But I think I will build my own version of this deck, and I'm going to make it modular tribal.
Ooh, yeah, that's cool.
Okay, yeah.
Because I think that's really cool. Because obviously in the graveyard, the creature's a 0/0 or something. But you bring it back for 2 mana. Oh, wow, here's 7 counters on it. Yeah, get wrecked. So
that's cool.
That's kind of what I want to do with it.
I like that a lot. What about yourself, Dom? Anything particularly jump out for yourself?
Not in terms of cards, although I did pre-order the Final Fantasy 14 Commander deck Collector's Edition because that is the game that I played the most. So I'm looking forward to that and seeing some of the other characters as well. So, nice. But the Commander looks really good. Yeah. That's Esper as well. So it's Yoshitola, I think.
Yeah, Knight's Blessed, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
So basically, it's interesting because it cares about mana value 3 or more.
That's interesting. That is interesting.
And drains your opponent and gains you life. So you could build it a lot of different ways. It'll be interesting to see what the full deck list or the pre-con comes as. But yeah, you could do it with artifacts or just spell slinging, I guess.
Yeah.
As well.
Esper has a lot of. I mean, I love playing Esper. I know Azorius is my boy, but Esper is one of my favorite tricolored. I just think I really like those colors together. They work really, really well in my opinion. Cool. Okay. So we've touched on Final Fantasy a little bit. Let's touch on to the other universes beyond, which we haven't seen too much about this, but obviously Spider-Man was also previewed / spoiled over to Chicago as well. So what we have seen so far has been, I think they call these the scene collects. can't remember the terminology, but we had them in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
That's correct.
Yeah, so they create a scene, which basically you want to put together, and again, basically these are they're obviously designed to be played and used, but they're supposed to be sort of put into to create a scene, pop in a frame on your wall type thing, which I'm a massive fan of these. The Lord of the Rings one, I absolutely love those ones, so I'm glad to see this. But it's our first look at the Spider-Man artwork, and I know obviously there's been a discussion. This is not quite the art style they're going to be going with, but they have said they're leaning more into Spider-Man comics, not Spider-Man the films. Same as with the Marvel stuff. So this is our first touch and taste of it. And what do you guys think of it so far?
I like it. I mean, I think the scene commanders that we've seen are quite low power, and I think there'll be more stuff that's quite spicy coming out in the set.
I agree.
But I think in terms of the art, I think they've absolutely nailed the Spider-Man aspect of it. And I know some people who are into their Magic the Gathering high fantasy art will be upset by it. But I think if that's just sort of potentially a price you've got to pay when it comes to Universes Beyond, that you're not going to love the art, is what it is.
Yep.
I think the cards are cool. I like the flavour of them. I'm excited to build Doc Ock, Evil Inventor, which is the Demir one.
Yeah, looks cool. Looks really
And I want to see some more. Show us Lady Spider-Man, show us Miles Morales, show us all the other cool stuff that can come out.
Well, they have obviously the preview to some of the other products, and so you've got Miles Morales is pictured on the collector booster art, along with Gwen as well.
Yep. Which is always good. It's nice to see there's a versatility in there, which is always good, and it's spanning across lots of different scopes of Spider-Man. Obviously, the scene one looks very. It's not.
Yeah, so it's sensational Spider-Man, which obviously, and then you've got Ultimate Spider-Man, Superior, all of these different comic runs that obviously have different art styles and draw on different storylines and things like that, different villains. So yeah, you're going to see a whole load of different Spider-Man cards from all these different kind of comics and different styles for each one.
Yep.
So I think there'll be something for everyone. They've also said that actually the welcome decks.
Yeah, these
there's going to be welcome decks for Spider-Man as well, which is great. Absolutely, that's exactly what Universe Beyond should have been doing. Probably from the start.
Yeah,
these welcome decks. So you can take in, for those people who don't know, you can take someone in to your LGS, say, I'm here to, teach this person how to play Magic. And you get given these free welcome decks, and you get to teach them how to play with these new cards, and then you get to keep them at the end. So it's perfect. It's like recently, my trainer Dan, I took him down to Langdon.
Yep.
And he got a couple of welcome decks, and then straight away he enjoyed playing, and he bought a precon, playing Commander with him as well. So, these kind of intro products are perfect for people who might not have necessarily ever played Magic before.
So this is the power of this type of product, Lo. You've basically just summed it up there. Someone that has an interest, rocks up, plays these intro style products, commits, but then moves on to moving into Commander, and then which is then puts him into a sphere with a lot of other people. It's the natural progression. I think there's a really positive step forward, and I do agree with you. They should have been doing this from Lord of the Rings, if not earlier. Let's be honest.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the welcome deck concept is absolutely fantastic. I know they've been doing that for a while. But if I've got one of my friends who's really into Spider-Man the comics, has some really rare versions, in the Mylar bags and all that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I'll take him into just play our local LGS and be like, okay, so which version of Spider-Man do you like the most? And I don't know, Miles Morales or whatever. Oh, well, great. Here's a welcome deck with his face on it. Let's go play it.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yep. I think it's going to be. It's going to be a bit of a game changer as well, because the one thing we've said about all these IPs is they are going to grab people into the Magic the Gathering universe. And what's the best way of introducing people? I think starter decks, but also I think these intro decks are going to work really, really nicely as well. They're going to get to play with the IP that they're interested in. It's perfect, isn't it?
It's a good idea because there's no financial jeopardy to it. So, if I want to take someone to learn how to play Magic, it's like, we'll get these decks, you experience being in an LGS. If you don't like it, play a couple of games, we'll just go for a beer. And that's the end of that.
Yep. Perfect.
No pressure at all.
No. But it could also open them up to, the fantastic game that we all love and want to continue loving. Do you know what I mean? I truly believe Magic is a fantastic game, and I say this to people that have no clue about Magic, but I honestly think the versatility of the game is just incredible, and the community is incredible as well. 100%.
It's the best game in the world because I can't think of any other game
No, I agree.
where you can play in such a complex way or simple way if you want to, but crucially express yourself through the way that you play the game. I know of no other version of that, and I'd love to be told that there's others, but I don't know that there are.
I think the closest thing you're going to get would be the customization of your characters on a digital game. That's about as close as you're going to get to that. Whereas actually, that's fine, but I think that is the beautiful thing about it. There's going to be opportunities that if you want to create your Frodo deck or your Spider-Man deck or your SpongeBob SquarePants, whatever it may be, you can do those things, and I think that's great. As much as it's very easy to get sniffy at, I think it is good in the right spheres, 100%. You guys looking forward to Spider-Man set?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not a massive comic fan, but I am looking forward to it. I think it'll be really fun to make the content for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll get lots of new players into the game, which is a really important thing.
Yep.
But I mean, I love Magic. So more cards coming into Magic, which I can brew around and be like, this is cool. Think of dumb 6-card infinite combos that this card goes into.
Yeah.
I just love that. I mean, it doesn't even have to be Spider-Man. I'm just generally excited for new cards.
Yep, 100%. You've said something there that I'm just going to touch on, which is,
Sure.
you want more cards, more play, more Magic. That's great, fantastic. Do we think there is too much Magic the Gathering sets coming out and supplementary products coming out with us at this moment in time?
I think at this moment it might feel like a lot because we're basically in the middle of 3 spoiler seasons at the moment. We've got Tarkin, we've got Spider-Man just dropped in Final Fantasy as well. But from what I can tell, and maybe I'm wrong because I've only been playing the game for like 3 or 4 years, it feels like the density of sets coming out is about the same or maybe even slightly less than what it has been in the past. I think it's just the fact that we're having this relentless bombardment of spoilers and the relentless bombardment of reactionary content to it as well that's making it feel like a lot's going on. But whereas I think actually, if you in the cold light of day, that might not be the case.
I think Dom would probably know this more so than I am because he's definitely the brains of the outfit here. I think this year we are having the most set releases that there has been, if I remember rightly.
I think into standard it will be because you're going to end up with 6 standard releases this year.
Yeah,
which is unprecedented. Normally it's 4.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Right?
Yeah, that's
well, no, but
you're not wrong.
Yeah,
so...
you're not wrong. It's just that now, whereas we would have a standard release, we'd have a Masters set, we'd have another standard, then there'd be a commander sort of speciality, another standard release, and then we would have
straight to modern set, or something that isn't going
go back to Innistrad or whatever exactly. Whereas now we are having lots of standard sets, almost a bit back to back. I'll come back.
By bringing all of the Universe Beyond into standard, that is creating a massive card pool. But also, actually, from a certain viewpoint, say if you enter your powerful cards, actually, there might not be a Spider-Man that you want to build your command around because it's just too weak, for example, because it is a standard card.
Yep.
But I think they've done a good job in, obviously, they said, back in this far design era where they went a bit overboard, but actually, there's nothing wrong with bringing the power level up as long as they, ban when necessary and more frequently if needed. There's nothing wrong with having a higher power level of standard.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how this influx of cards will affect standard because there will be a huge card pool. There might be, there'll be some infinite combos that sneak through and all this kind of stuff. So they're going to have to be quite sharp on the bans, but I think it's good for standard players, but because of the premium pricing on these.
Well,
Beyond.
hold on.
Yeah.
I want to talk. I want to talk about. I just wanted to, just because Wally had primed it, I just wanted to dip into that moment in time. But I do want to talk about this, and I want to talk about it towards the end. But I just kind of want to move on to a set that I am legitimately really excited for, which has, unfortunately, because of the Final Fantasy previews and the Spider-Man stuff as well, all coming a bit close together, which is our next standard set, which is going to be Tarkir Dragonstorm. I am actually really looking forward to this. I like Tarkir as a plane from the previous sets, although I wasn't playing. I have been looking at older cards. I've been looking into these older sets. Excuse me, thoroughly enjoyed it. And who doesn't love massive dragons, right? Who doesn't?
I remember losing to them at the pre-release because I didn't open a single one, not even a common.
Yeah.
Dozens.
Removal. It sounds like removal is key in that, but yeah.
The set itself was brilliant, and this was back in blocks, right?
Yeah.
So you had, we
had 3 of them, I believe. I think it was 3, wasn't it?
Time traveling with the clans, the dragons, and the Fate Reforged, and all this kind of thing. So it looks like coming into this set, obviously off screen, the dragons have been slapped, and now the clans are working with like all these spirit dragons and things. But it looks really cool. All the art they've shown is awesome.
Oh yeah,
shown some of the cards as well, and dragons are cool, man.
Yeah.
It's just they've always been like the the pinnacle of the high fantasy creature has always been a dragon, hasn't it? So
massive.
There's a level of coolness that comes with it, and it's exciting, I think, to people who have missed some of the, I want to say, regular planes. So we've just come off the back of the racing set, so it's like, and then we had the detective set.
And the cowboy.
And the cowboy set. So actually, going back to a plane we know and love, actually, it might be a little bit of a breath of fresh air if you haven't been enjoying recent sets. And there's been some great cards and things in there, but I know some people think, it's why these planeswalkers that I love wearing a cowboy hat when they're actually a queen on another plane, right? It's like, it makes no sense. Now's the time, actually, I can get back into this, what Magic is all about, which is visiting the planes that you love and going back to them, seeing the characters that you enjoyed from that plane. And maybe some of these characters, because of the Omen Pass, will then, move on and we'll see them on other planes as well. So, interesting.
You made a really interesting point there, which is, the last few sets have been, we joke by calling it the cowboy set, the car set. Actually, Pleasant Kenobi done a video very, very recently about this, and he put it. I would say to anybody, however you feel about Vince, go check this video out, because actually he puts it really, really well. Which is, the design of those sets might not be to everyone's liking. They're not always quite clear. Why you've got why you have certain characters that are in this plane with said cowboy hat, detective hat, or racing helmet or something along those lines. He puts it very, very well, and I would definitely go recommend putting it. But Dom's also made a very good point there, which is this is probably our first return to quote unquote a traditional plane. And I'll be honest with you, I'm looking forward to it more so because of that. I had no issues with Aether Drift or any of those other planes. Thunder Junction was a bit of fun. I liked some of the special guest cards that were coming out. I thought there was some good value in the packs. Murders at Karlov Manor, I actually enjoyed. I like that murder mystery feel and vibe. But it does feel like it's going to be really nice and refreshing to go back to a Magic the Gathering plane, particularly Tarkir. I've got a different feel and a different vibe about this. So what are your thoughts on this, Wally?
So, firstly, I'm very excited because I started playing Magic just as Strixhaven came out. So this is the first standard legal set that's coming out that marks a proper return to proper traditional high fantasy.
Yeah.
So this, for me, is what Magic the Gathering kind of... I'm not going to say it's what it's meant to be, but it's what it was back in the day.
I 100% agree with you, actually. I don't have an issue with these other supplementary sets, but this is high fantasy, and this is, a taste back to magic of ye old. Do you know what I mean?
And it's exciting as well because I own quite a lot of Tarkir cards from Tarkir back in the day, just because they go well in decks that I've built. So I've got a lot of warrior type decks and things like that. So I just happen to own these cards. So going back to them saying, okay, so how is this going to be reimagined in the new set?
Yep.
How are this, characters like Narset, for example, or Alicia who come from these planes? Like,
love it.
And I know Narset's your bay, Alex. That's exactly it. I look at that and think that's an Alex card.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the
we'll talk about cards in a minute, but go on, Karen. Sorry, I want to talk about the set before we talk into individual cards, but go on.
Sure. I mean, I actually don't really know much about the individual cards, but yeah, like Dom says, going back to a plane where dragons are. I mean, I think the last time dragons were like the real chase cards might have been Strixhaven. I might be wrong about that because you had the Elder Dragons in Strixhaven. We're going to have
new Elder chase cards. Yeah, you're probably right. In terms of chase cards, you're probably right. We have obviously had dragons in other sets, but the issue we've had with dragons in sets traditionally outside of these type of sets is they're normally big chunky and they're normally expensive. So I'm just kind of looking at a dragon here, Stormskull Scion, which is what is it, a 4/4? And it's 6 mana. I mean, you are looking in terms of like a standard format or even like a modern form, anything like that.
You're not going to
it's not to scratch. You're not going to see play in that.
Right? It's
like there might be some kind of reanimator build or something perhaps. But what I think is, I mean, if we're happy to start talking a bit more cards, we've got this Mox Jasper, haven't we? 0 mana artifact.
I was going to talk to you.
That taps only if you control a dragon, which leads me to believe there will be a 1 mana dragon in the set.
Almost certainly a dragon egg or something like that.
Yep.
Right? We saw
We've seen
in the D&D set. They had a lot of lower mana cost dragons that didn't fly because they were the dragon kin, right? But it's it was or the Dragonborn. Or no, that's Skyrim. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so you had all these lower mana cost creatures that were dragons. So actually, I think there's quite possibly there might be a little drake or a little dragon whelp or a dragon egg that actually will enable that.
100%.
And if that card gets printed, I think there will be a Gruul Dragons deck in Standard. Reason being that you've got the dragon, you've got the Mox Jasper, and you've also got Llanowar Elves. So you potentially, if you draw the God Hand, you could actually untap on turn 2 as something like 6 mana. So you heard it here first. Anyway,
suddenly the high mana costs aren't looking so bad.
Yeah, for sure.
The one thing I would say is I think this was a very interesting design actually because I love the Moxes. I love this idea of a 0 mana artifact. They're very, very powerful. But the thing I really like about this is that, let's be honest, dragons aren't known for their cheap mana costs. So this will help get those dragons out a little bit quicker, which I think is perfect and fantastic. And I love that they've been bold enough to reprint a Mox, but they put the design into it that it's only if you control a dragon. So I know there are going to be dragons and cards that have the dragon type on the creature type that allow you to use this, but I think this is a really interesting design, and I really like this type of design because I love that it's a cheap mana artifact. I know not everybody loves them, but I really like this. When I saw this, I was like, yes, this is really, really good. This is not a broken artifact, in my opinion.
By no means.
But a 0 mana artifact or 0 mana cards full stop is still very, very powerful. But I love this activate only if you control a dragon. I think that just tempers it down, and it's definitely a bit interesting to see how this moves on. I really would do, actually. Interesting design.
Yeah. So I think we start getting spoilers in about a week's time, don't we? And I think
is it the 18th?
We'll really start to be able 18th. Yeah, so it's a little bit over a week.
Yeah, a week and a bit. But yeah,
it's 2 weeks exactly. But yes.
And I can't wait for that. I cannot wait to start seeing more of this set because I'm just really excited about it. Also, I really like tricolored cards. Particularly building Commander. Not so much in standard sets, but I'll tell you the question I'll pitch to you guys here. Our triomes have rotated out of standard. Do you reckon we're going to get an equivalent or something else very similar?
Well, Tarkir was always the fetch land plane, right?
Yeah.
But I,
They're not putting fetch lands into standard. Come
No chance.
on.
No chance.
I mean,
on.
they were for a while, right?
Well,
That's where they were printed.
Well, they could do it, to be fair. Like, fetch lands.
Without the chimes to fetch, what if you actually got the fetchable, the surveil lands? Probably turns it, maybe turns standard into a bit too of a modern format. But I think outside of the surveil lands,
Yep.
what can you really
there is
fetch?
going to be a mythic land cycle, I believe, in Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
So that's already exciting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I wonder if there'll be hideaway lands, actually.
Okay.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know. I had a feeling. I was
save them for Lorwyn, right? Because that's where.
Yeah, I suppose you're right, actually. But I just kind of figure out like I think there's gonna be some chunky cards in this, and what's not a better way of getting chunky cards out other than using your graveyard, which is like these hideaways. I think they're
that's fair.
they're
Yeah,
I
point.
could be wrong. Individual cards. I mean, Wally, you've already touched on it. Narset, Jeske's Waymaster. I saw this card. I love Narset. It's one of my favorite characters in the Magic the Gathering universe, and I do like Jeskai as well. As soon as I saw this, I was like, I'm gonna have to build this. I'm really excited to see what I can do with this. I have a very fond memory of any of my Narset decks I've built in the past. They've always been pretty grim. I'm not gonna lie to you, and yeah, I'm looking forward to building this bad boy. Yeah.
Yeah, Narset is how to make friends in Magic the Gathering, that's for sure. I mean, I think we need to have a talk about Skirmish Rhino as well.
Yeah.
Like, you just love to see it, don't you? The card's garbage, but it'll be so good in Limited.
The artwork is great on this. I love the colours.
I mean, Siege Rhino was an absolute house, right? This isn't too much worse.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah, that's a really
gaining. It kind of shuts off mono red if you're gaining a bunch of life.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say
how actually lets you stabilize against that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I mean, I think it will be a really powerful limited card, and once they solve the meta, this will be like pack one, pick one. I think.
But this is the conversation I like about Magic the Gathering, because we've just you've obviously sort of said what you've just said there, Wally, and I don't disagree with you. But Dom's then come in and sort of said, well, made another good point, which kind of makes you go, oh, actually, that's a really good point. I love talking about Magic, and I love talking about the potential. I mean, realistically, we're not going to know until these cards are out in the open. You've got creators and professional Magic players start to play with this, and then we watch the meta start to settle. That's when we'll know the cards that are going to be key and the cards that are not. But I love talking about these cards. Like, yeah, this set has got me going. I'm telling you guys, absolutely got me going.
I just want to comment about that sieges are returning as well.
Yeah.
There's the enchantment, the modal enchantments that you had to pick. Back in the day, it was either clans or dragons, and you got a different effect. Whereas now, actually, you're picking clans.
Yeah.
So, for example, the one they previous is Baron Step Siege. It's two, a white and a black, and when it enters, you choose Abzan or Mardu. So, obviously, notably, it has the two colors that fit within both of those clans.
Yeah.
So, obviously, there's going to be a cycle of these that work with two of each clan. And then, so at the beginning of your end step, if you choose Abzan, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. I mean, that's just real good.
Yeah.
Or if you pick Mardu at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, each opponent sacrifices a creature of their choice. So these are both huge effects.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. We've just had a bunch of enchantment support out of Duskmourn as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'd be surprised if one or two of these don't make some kind of impact.
I 100% agree with you. Absolutely. I'm looking forward. I know I've sort of said it a couple times. I'm really looking forward to seeing this settle in, and I hope there's some really good, nice bomb rares, some nice powerful cards, some awesome mythics, not just for Commander but for Standard as well. I hope this really shakes Standard. I know Standard's in a good place at the minute. I'm sure if we had Christian on here, he'd harp on about how good Standard's at the minute, because I know he loves it at the minute.
I hear it all the time, literally. I mean, and to be fair, he's right. Standard is in a really good place right now. I think if you want to play something in Standard, you pretty much can.
Yeah.
So people are turning up and winning games with pretty much pre-release decks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So what's not to love about it?
Exactly. I'm hoping I'm hoping with the amount of releases we're having this year, I'm hoping one of the positives would be there will be an increased card pool, but I'm hoping that gives variety and makes a bit of a brewer's paradise because I love nothing more than that story of someone that's come into like a big RCQ season and completely comes left field. Something that completely you're like, what are you playing? Oh, that's interesting. Didn't even think about it. It's not even on the radar and just stonks everything. Storms all over everything. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, actually, this is really cool. I love that idea. I always love the idea of trying to build a deck like that. I never will do because I don't have the building abilities. I don't have that integral knowledge. But I love the idea of that something that's completely under the radar has just come in and just been like, everyone's gone, whoa, what was this?
Yeah, completely catch the field by surprise, and that often, like, you hear stories about it all the time. So the Rakdos Vampires deck that got Sorin the Bad in Pioneer, that basically spiked an Aussie. A team turned up and they'd been testing it for months. Turned up and I think half of them top 8'd or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, turns out getting free Vein Rippers is good. Who knew?
Vein Ripper, fantastic card, absolutely beast of a card.
The thing is, the deck isn't sad to hardcast them either, but when you get it that early, it's horrible.
Yeah, I know. That's what makes it even better, though, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
So we've sat here and we've talked about these sort of up and coming sets. I'm gonna refer. Talk to me. What have we missed?
They've also announced that the final set of the year is going to be Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Well, that's not actually that's not actually the set I was thinking of. What's the space themed one?
Yes, Edge of Eternity. So there,
Okay.
So all of these cards are going into standard, right?
It's a lot of sets. It's a lot of sets. So let me pitch this question to you guys. I know we sort of already touched on this, but are there too many sets? I'm going to caveat this percent. Are there too many sets about to go into standard? Dom, I'm going to ask you first, and I'll come to you, Wally, afterwards. But what are your thoughts on this?
This is a tough one. You've always had sets that go straight to modern, things like that, to try and rip up their meta game. Or you've got, commander only releases, or just the throwbacks like the Time Spiral Remastered, things like that, which often have a limited print run, or you can't get hold of them because they're a limited print. So actually, I think having standard sets printing, notably, it's the Universe Beyond that they've decided to put straight into standard.
Mm-hmm.
So presumably there was a plan to keep them out of it originally, but they made this decision. So all of these Universe Beyond sets are going into standard. So they might have a higher power level. So you might see an uptick in the power level of standard because when these sets were designed, they might have been straight to modern. We don't know, right?
No, it's fair. That's a very fair point.
Maybe the first couple, at least.
Yeah.
That decision might have been taken after they were designed. So it'll be interesting to see what effect the first couple have.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, because they're standard sets, they'll be printed more. People who are just collecting the cards should hopefully be able to get hold of them because they will be a standard set, which will be in print for a lot longer than some of these specialist sets, especially like the commander only sets or the like the 40k decks, where actually for a while you were struggling to get hold of them. Yeah, as actually as a standard set, it should be in print for a long time.
So I just want to jump in before I ask Wally here. I just want to jump in because you're already talking to me about there could be some issues and potential struggle with the amount of product that might be coming because of there's so much of it and the reprint stuff like that.
Well, it doesn't look like there's any additional sets, does it? It just means they're all standard legal.
No.
So instead of modern sets, you're getting standard sets.
I agree with you, but we are currently having issues. I don't know if you've noticed any different, Wally, or I don't know if Dom, if you've tried to look outside. You're struggling to get hold of Foundations, and that is supposed to be effectively the core set that's supposed to be into 2029 or whatever it was. They're obviously having some printing issues here. Do we think overloading this into standard sets is going to? Do you think this could buckle under the weight of this? Whereas you'd have a limited print of a master set, or your remastered sets, your one and dones. We're going to print this amount of it, and it's bish bash bosh. Got to bear in mind these are going to be available for the next couple of years. are they applying too much pressure on themselves, and are they going to, or do you think they're going to start having some stock issues? Wally, what are your thoughts on that? And then I'll talk to you about if there's too many sets.
I hadn't considered the supply chain impact, if I'm being perfectly honest, Alex. I thought that had just completely passed me by. And I think, yeah, that is a concern, because if we're now going from 4 standard sets a year to effectively fit 50% more, standard rotation is less frequent now as well. And on the back of that, as you rightly say, you've got Foundations that's going to be around till 2029 or something, I think. I personally haven't noticed any availability issues with Foundations, by the way. My LGS always has loads of it. Then I would hope that Wizards of the Coast have made plans for that. Because, I mean, I guess that when it comes to Universes Beyond, we don't know when the licenses expire and things like that, so maybe that's another factor. But that's, in many ways, also an additional worry. Because if Final Fantasy is going to be in Standard till, will it be 2028? Because we're on a 3-year rotation now. If they stop printing it midway through 2026, perhaps, then the cards suddenly become very expensive. There's some random mythic rare that suddenly becomes very important in a deck because a new card's been printed that synergizes well with it. Are we going to have this effect? And I know you mentioned the prices of sets, and that's something I'm sure we'll come on to.
We'll talk about it a bit later, but yeah.
Are we going to have this effect where people start to get priced out of Standard, and all the great work Wizards have done to revitalize Standard? Because let's be honest, 18 months ago, Standard was an arena-only format. You could not play it on paper anywhere. We went to MC Barcelona, and one of the things that me and Christian both commented on is that there was not a single organized Standard event. There wasn't even on-demand Standard. Nobody played Standard on paper. But now it's this really thriving format, which it's been at the most recent Pro Tour was Standard. RCs are Standard. RCQs are Standard. People are playing it. Christian's just texted me to say there's 21 people at our LGS playing Standard tonight. They're opening up another Standard night at our LGS because so many people want to play it. So, yeah, just to completely loop back to the question, could it potentially buckle under the weight? Yes.
I think,
is the answer.
I think there's a serious consideration here because the serious consideration here is that there has obviously been some issues in the past, and I'd like to think that they're working their way through this instead of just treading water. Like as a business, you always have to be trying to strive and move forward. You can't just accept, oh well, we made a mistake there. Oh well, we'll learn from our mistakes and not do anything about it. So I'm hoping these are things that we're not hearing about this moment in time, but hopefully in 6 to 12 months' time, we'll go, oh, actually, there's another factory opening in Europe or wherever it is, to try and help with this demand. I do wonder, and I certainly hope that we don't have an issue like you've just explained there, Wally, which is we are having Final Fantasy in for the next effectively 3 years, but their licensing is only to print for 18 months or 2 years. I'd like to think that they have dealt with that or have thought about that. I really, really hope so. Because the last thing you definitely want is 18 months down the line, a card is released that goes perfect with something from Final Fantasy, and everyone goes, oh, this is a must-have. I need 4 of these, and I need them stat. Oh, well, Final Fantasy is going to be massive, so it's going to be well opened, like, don't get me wrong. But if you can't get hold of... I always think if you can't get hold of packs that are in standard rotation currently, there is something a little bit wrong there, isn't there?
I agree, and ultimately, getting hold of the packs and people firing drafts is what gets more cards into the singles pool, which is what keeps them affordable. So we need to be sure that people are doing that. And the first step to that is the packs being available.
100%. Dom?
I'll be interested to see if 6 sets a year just washes away the relevance of Foundations anyway.
Well, yeah. I mean, the
especially if they're of a slightly higher power level.
The way I look about this is so the more sets, the more chance there is to freshen up a format. So, and I acknowledge that, and I hope that's what happens, because I know it's quite good at the minute, but we have had a period of time where basically a lot of the top meta in Standard was Black Sheldred. It was basically if you've got 4 of that card, you are already on an advantage to everything else. And I know that's a very blanket statement, but I think we all identify that. It has moved away from that a little bit now, which is good and it's fresh. I like to see new cards that enter the format. I like to see new cards that have impact, and that's fantastic. Are we going to have 6 sets of that? I hope so. Are we going to muddy the waters, or is the worst case going to happen here that we end up having what happens in Modern, which is power creep that creeps into Standard, and you have not only power creep, but then also the price then starts to inflate with it? Because we know we've not spoke too much about this, but these Universes Beyond sets, they are priced at a premium price. These are not, these are not bog standard packed price. These are, I'm not going to say inflated price. They are a premium priced, and because of that, are we close? Are we a bit in danger of trying to price people out of Standard?
Well, yes, of course we are.
Yeah,
it's if it's more expensive, you run a greater level of that risk.
I hope that.
And it was disheartening to see that these Final Fantasy and Spider-Man sets, and presumably the Avatar one as well, we don't know yet, are going to be more expensive, because the price of standard legal packs has been pretty consistent, I think, for at least the last year. I know the prices went up recently, but it didn't feel like anything more than effectively a cost of living rise, for want of a much better term.
Was it was from the draft boost to the play boost change, wasn't it? Which is kind of another thing that kind of kept Standard alive in some ways, or reinvigorate, because before then everyone was buying set boosters, right? Because there was no point buying a draft booster unless you were actually drafting. So
just on the point of price, I've just got some. I won't say where I'm looking, but I've got a UK outlet that's selling both Tarkir, Dragonstorm, and Final Fantasy. So obviously these are pre-order prices. So they will go down a little bit. It's normally what happens. You normally find there is a higher price initially for pre-order. Then once it comes to release, you'll have decks. The popular decks will either stabilize in price or maybe go up a little bit. And then the ones that are less powerful or not selling as much will drop in price. That's perfectly normal. But so Tarkir at the minute, you're looking a play booster is 145, which is, that appears to be the cost of doing Magic business at the minute. The price has gone up, like you've sort of said. It's basically raised with inflation.
This is for a box of boost.
No, this is a single. This is a single pack. Is what a single play booster at the minute. So I can talk about the box of it in a minute. But a single Final Fantasy play booster is a £4 more. And I know it's very easy to be like, oh, it's only £1, but actually that's a big jump, isn't it? That is the premium price creeping in. That's a big increase. And are you going to get that much value? Are you going to get that increase in value, or are you going to end up paying for more for a higher chance of getting the chase card, which I think is effectively what might end up happening? Magic is getting more expensive, and again, I hate to sound like I'm fanboying here, but Pleasant Kenobi put up a tweet the other day. It was basically saying you can get a collector's box of I think it might be Final Fantasy, and then compared that price. He said, or you can go get yourself like a Nintendo Switch and some games and a customized controller. And it's like, which one would you rather have? And I didn't really ever think about it until I looked at it and I went, actually, that's a really good point. And you could do a lot. You can get a lot of enjoyment out of a Nintendo Switch. And as much as we would,
the Switch 2 coming out in this year, so.
Well, there's a little bit of extra spice to PK's actually, because it wasn't just any selection of games; it was every Final Fantasy game.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So do you know what I mean? He makes a really good point here. I know PK can be a bit divisive, but he makes a really solid point here, which is, to buy something that effectively you could have. How many Final Fantasies are there? 18 of them now, or something like that? 17? Whatever. I honestly don't know, but 15 plus games, effectively 15 plus games. I mean, there's one thing I know about the Final Fantasy games is there's a lot of playability to them. So you've got a lot of play hours there, or you're effectively buying a box of. You're basically making a gamble, aren't you? Let's call it what it is. You are getting the equivalent of the more expensive scratch card here, and when you win big, and when you don't, I'll tell you what, I've had those boxes. And it feels bad. And I know I made my peace with that a long time ago. I know how that feels. But this is a premium price product. I am just a little concerned that we might start outpricing Standard, and that concerns me. Because I still believe Standard should be the entry into Magic the Gathering. I know a lot of the time it's Commander now. Dom spoke a really good example about his friend coming into it and went straight into Commander, and I don't have a problem with that. But Standard should be the standard, really, shouldn't it? Let's be honest.
The welcome decks are a good avenue for that. If they carry that on,
but
be good.
and I think they're a great product, but that should be pushing you into Standard. Whereas we all know what's going to happen because again, if I then swing it back to Tarkir, you've got their pre-con decks. 35.90.
There's one for each clan.
Yeah, 35.95. I know there's the team and one's a bit more expensive on here, so that's 45. That's a lot of cards for £45, and you can play a lot of cards with that. Whereas you're spending more on that on a non-meta standard deck at the minute. Do you know what I mean? So I think there has to be some real caution here, because if we start overpricing what should be the entry format, I think we got to be real careful here. Real careful is my opinion.
You don't want to,
and thankfully we're only at the start of it now, but it's an issue. And what my hope is that it's a calculated measure to get more people into the game.
Yeah. So they're obviously more expensive because they have to pay for the IP, and I understand that. And I dread to think what they pay to get these IPs.
Oh yeah.
But
that's why the price is going up.
Yeah, right? of course it is.
Hasbro released their vote, it's like actually they spent so much on licensing that their revenue, I think Wizards' revenue actually went down by 1% because of all of the licensing fees. So now, obviously, within the supply chain, the prices are going up because they need to cover that additional cost. These licenses aren't cheap, obviously.
No, of course not. But I would have hoped that they would have seen this as almost like an investment. And what I mean by that is they're investing in these IPs to get new players in, and hopefully will increase their player pool and people that are going to be buying these cards. So hopefully, yes, they may lose 8%, but in the long run, they may gain 2% because of these players coming into it more. I wish there would be a bit more of that, because that
doesn't help the quarterlies. That's the problem.
I also think I've said this before on the pod, and I think it's important to distinguish this as well. I don't think this price point is a Wizards decision. I think this is a Hasbro decision, and sometimes I think that's where we all see a bit of frustration, because we are seeing the game we love go more expensive. If you didn't have Hasbro looming over Wizards, would this happen? Maybe not.
The thing is, Wizards have been part of Hasbro now for so long that they are one and the same. You can't honestly.
It's hard to. You don't know a
piece of paper between them, right? Because it's now Hasbro have been in control of Magic now for more than 50% of Magic's lifetime. So
yep.
It's just Hasbro. They are a division of Hasbro.
Yeah, it's effectively like what Monopoly is, to Hasbro. It is another asset that they have that they sort of move forward. Okay, so we spoke about the new sets and some of the examples of the pricings about this sort of stuff. I've
got one more point to sneak in though.
No, sneak it in.
So talking about obviously the Commander decks alongside the standard set, they have said that with the Spider-Man release, there won't be any Commander decks.
Yes.
So actually, maybe that'll be something we see going forward. Not every set is going to have Commander decks now, and actually some of the ones that actually maybe were originally, maybe Spider-Man is going to be the first one that was designed for standard. There won't be Commander decks with it because it is designed to fit into that. But we'll see, I guess.
What are your thoughts on that, Wally?
I mean, let's be honest, guys. They did Commander decks for Modern Horizons 3.
Yeah.
So if there's an opportunity to do Commander decks, they will do
sets,
Commander decks.
Right? Even the Masters sets had them.
Yeah.
I think the biggest swing and miss from that scenario is can you imagine, say, like, imagine Spider-Man is your thing. You love that IP. You always have and you always will. You're Spider-Man till you die. Imagine if you yeah, exactly. Imagine if you play Commander and you can't wait for this, and then all of a sudden to be told the IP that you're most invested in. I want to caveat this because I think we're going to see some more Spider-Man moving forward, so we probably will see Commander decks and whatnot. But imagine you're that invested, and they don't release your Commander deck to that IP that you are so invested in and want to get involved in. That must really feel. I think that's a swing and a miss for them. As much as we've just sort of
intended.
Well,
It
yeah,
feels
exactly.
bad, sure.
Yeah.
And I can only assume it was something to do with licensing costs. I can't think of any.
Yeah, maybe.
I
Yeah.
agree.
other than that.
I agree. Maybe they've sort of said, or maybe we've been talking about supply issue. Maybe they have preempted that and gone, well, we're already pumping a lot out here, and if we add this other product, there is a discussion of product fatigue. Is this them trying to take the foot off the accelerator a little bit? I mean, it might not seem like it with all these previews coming up and all these spoilers and lots of products, but is that a little bit of them releasing the accelerator? Maybe towards the end of the year. I think it'll be interesting to come back to these conversations, because I think towards the end of the year we'll be able to answer a little bit more of these.
I think they want to sell boosters to Commander players.
It's also an option, but I can tell you now that Commander players buy boosters. They are buying boosters. So
right, there's no deck you can buy and play with. If you want some of these cards, you might actually have to buy the boosters. Where actually before you could just buy the precon, right, and then just play with that.
So there's a general consensus as well. So I've recently attended the Action Modern event recently, and I know I have a connection with those guys there, so I get to talk to them about this sort of stuff. But they effectively said their day one is Modern players coming in and selling their singles to Action, and they said because the Commander players that are coming tomorrow, they are the clientele that will buy these singles. It makes perfect sense. Yeah. So the Commander players, it makes sense why they focus on these guys, because look, we're all Commander players. We are going to buy packs. We are going to buy singles. We're going to buy these products. So it makes sense why they're investing into Commander, and we've all made their peace with that now, sort of thing. But look, guys, is Magic getting too expensive? I know this is an old question. I've asked it beforehand, but things have moved on from there, and things are moving upwards. Like, are we getting to a point where we're going to dangerously close to outprice people from playing Magic the Gathering, the game that we love, the game that we want to bring more people into?
I think we may already have hit that point. I'm trying to sort of be diplomatic in how I say this.
No, of course.
The first set that came out that was noticeably more expensive was Commander Masters. That's like going back 18 months now or something. And Commander Masters continues to be very expensive, even though the chase card from it has been banned.
Oh, yeah.
Don't talk to me about the festival box that I bought. And I opened my Masters Collector Booster, Alt Art Jeweled Lotus in there. 2 weeks post-ban, I was like, feels bad, but whatever.
Yeah.
So my worry is that what we're pricing people out of is not necessarily playing Magic, because you can always buy singles and save money that way. But what will happen is there'll be this trickle-down effect of people not buying packs to open, not buying packs to draft.
I agree with that.
So that pool starts to get smaller.
Yep.
And it's a secondary effect of the singles then going up, and that's when people are priced out of Magic. And that's my worry, that we're maybe into that unintended secondary effect that leads to Magic being more expensive and therefore pricing people out. And the fact that it's potentially happening in Standard is worrying, because, in Commander, if you can't afford the £40 splashy card that you might not draw and might get countered when you cast it, it's not going to affect your deck too much unless you're playing CEDH.
Right, there's normally one that's 1 mana more and half the price, right? It's
well, exactly, yeah. So
or at least similar. Yeah.
But if people start to get priced out of Standard, then that's worrying, because that's the top of the funnel for me.
Yep.
I think off the back of the change from draft to play boosters.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've already just seen that increase. So actually, already drafts are quite expensive. To have another increase on top of that, if you want to draft, is horrifying, honestly. For some of these sets, they will be doing pre-releases for these sets as well, notably, because they are standard sets.
Yep.
So you get that aspect, which is cool. But obviously, those starter kits are going to be more expensive as well. It's going to be more expensive to attend your pre-release.
So, yeah, I mean, Modern Horizons pre-release, Modern Horizons 3 pre-release, that was £45 or something, which is quite a lot more expensive. And all 3 days sold out at my LGS.
Wow.
So,
I mean, I guess the demand's there. But if you've got modern players, I guess that's a bit different. But
they're already used to spending big money on cards. So
yeah. Whereas actually standard players, well, maybe it'll end up getting that way.
Well, as
Yeah.
you say, might be getting that way.
These mythic land cycle in Tarkir, it might get that way even without the universe beyond.
you said it might get that way. You have to remember that there was a time not that long ago where a single copy of Sheldred was the best part of £90.
Yeah, it
That's
was £30
wild.
on pre-release though.
But that's on
Yeah.
pre-release. This is the problem. You know what happens. It's the magic stonks, isn't it?
But yeah, it was suddenly it's the best card in standard, and it's escaped a ban 3 times in a row. So now it's tripled in price.
Sheldred isn't even the best black 4-drop anymore. Archfiend of the Dross has very much taken that position. But Sheldred was so expensive that I actually bought the Phyrexian text version because I didn't want to spend £100 or something to get a card that was in English, and everyone knows what it does anyway. So yeah.
Which is crazy because the fraction copies always used to be the expensive versions, didn't they? Yeah, I think there's I think that's the general consensus. For me, I mirror a lot of what you guys are sort of saying as well. I just want to touch on as well. Just Don made a point about drafting as well. We had our LGS owner on the pod the latter part of last year, and he made a really good point. Is with the play boosters and reduction amount of boosters in a box, is effectively now got to the point where his prize pool has now disappeared. So
that's shrinkflation in some ways. Isn't
it is. And you're then having your LGS, not only are they having to raise the price of drafting anyway because it's got more expensive, but they are either having to rely on supply from Wizards as a prize pool, or they're going to have to put it in themselves. Well, that means it's either going to get more expensive, or your local or your LGS, they're putting more into it than they're getting out of it. Well, any business when you've got more coming out than going back in, that's not a good business model, is it? So
the margins are already slim.
Right? Yeah, they're really slim, and that's the thing. I think it's very easy for people to forget, particularly when you're just a consumer that rocks up and my play boosters have gone up by a pound a packet. What's this all about? I can guarantee you their LGS are not making an extra pound on top of that. 100%.
No chance.
It'll be pence. It'll be pence. It'll literally be pence on top of that. So yeah, I think it's a big worry. It's certainly something to be thinking about. So we've got a lot of Universes Beyond coming into standard, particularly, and I know there has been contention with Universes Beyond, particularly in the early days. Do you think we should be releasing Universes Beyond into our standard sets? I'm going to start with you, Dom. I'll hear your thoughts on this. But do you think we should be doing this?
I think the initial outrage when the first Universe Beyond was displayed, it was mechanically unique into a secret lair. And we've moved beyond that now. Now, actually, suddenly they announce a Universe Beyond that you're invested in. And yeah, all that doubt kind of washes away. Like the 40k decks for me was the kind of turning point. And it's beyond that, Fallout as well. I love both IPs. I love Final Fantasy. Yeah, I'm not huge into it, but actually I played 14. Yeah, I bought one of the decks. And honestly, even Avatar, the last I watched the live action version on Netflix and enjoyed it. So it's like, sure, I'll see what that's about as well. Mm-hmm. And Spider-Man is kind of a universal thing. Grown up with it my whole life. Like I said, my cousin Ed, it's like he'll probably buy a bunch of the cards, or especially the art display one. Actually, that's an interesting one, at least. So. Yeah, I mean, the fact that they're going into standard, I don't think particularly matters. I don't think standard players, as a rule, would particularly care about the story as such. I don't think they're going to care that they kill their opponent with Spider-Man rather than Sheldred. I don't think it makes a huge difference then, but there will always be people who do get invested in the storyline, regardless of what format they play. So from that point of perspective, it could be sad, but... maybe they'll release a comic alongside it as well. You can just read that.
So I really understand all the consternation about Universes Beyond coming into standard. I understand it because of the price. I understand it because of dilution of Magic IP. I understand it for all of those other reasons. And I'm going to sort of talk about what's called the Lego model, no pun intended here. And I've actually got a prop, which I'm going to show you in a minute, so I apologise to everybody at home. But if we go, I'll show you the prop now, actually, because I'm just excited to show you. So for those who are listening on Spotify, this is a Lego Millennium Falcon. And if you see, this This is the one I got as a present off my girlfriend for 25 years of Lego Star Wars.
Wow.
Now, what not a lot of people know is that Lego Star Wars saved the Lego Corporation. And this is almost like Lego Universes Beyond, you might say. And people who enjoyed building Lego maybe had a problem with it at the time. And I'm also not saying, by the way, that Wizards of the Coast and Magic the Gathering needs saving.
Sure.
But what these non-traditional Lego sets have done has made Lego massive. And if the game of Magic the Gathering gets bigger because Universes Beyond brings more people in and makes the game massive, that is good for people who play it. Now, obviously, I understand there are other concerns that go around that, but I hope that this is some kind of calculated move to get people into the game, to get people into Standard particularly, to make it a better experience for everybody.
Yep.
So yeah, anyway, that's me. Was excited to show you the prop.
No.
But yeah.
I've got a little Slave One Boba's ship just in front of my TV. It's basically the same scale as that Falcon. So
It's really cool.
I bought 2 of the Indiana Jones Legos as well, right? So
Well, exactly, yeah. So now you can get, I think Star Wars was the first Lego thing that they did that wasn't traditional, just random sets.
Yeah.
But now, as you say, you can get Indiana Jones, there's Harry Potter.
Minecraft is huge as well.
Minecraft, yeah. I mean, that lends itself perfectly to it. I've got the America's Cup yacht literally sat 1 foot away from me, made out of Lego. So I think as long as they don't dilute the Magic IP, because the Lego IP wasn't one that really could be diluted in a similar way, they've got to be careful not to dilute that. Then I think this is good for Magic. And what is good for Magic is good for its players.
I think the IP is the IP one is a really interesting. I think it's really interesting because it does. I know there's lots of different trials of thought here, and go with me with this one because I think I'm going to flip back and forth about how my views about this sort of stuff goes a little bit as well. It does feel a little bit like to have half of the standard sets released being a Universes Beyond, it does feel a little bit like Wizards don't have the confidence in their own IP and they have to do that. I could be wrong in that, and maybe they're just thinking more IPs, more people coming in. I'm sure that's what it is. Sell more product, blah, 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 that sort of stuff. But it does feel like a little bit of a lack of confidence. Whereas actually, I don't think they need that. I think Magic the Gathering's IP itself is strong and it is solid, and and there's no leaning away from that. I am going to be honest with you. Before, very similar to Dom. Well, no, not similar to Dom, but a similar starting point with Dom. Before the 40k Universes Beyond product, I was a bit skeptical about Universes Beyond, and it wasn't the old man shouting at cloud type scenario. What my view always was, I'm happy to have these things, but why not do reskins? So if you wanted an in-universes version like they done with The Walking Dead, for argument's sake, perfect. It makes it accessible to people. But if you want a special version of that card that's themed around whatever the IP is, fantastic. The first time I saw those 40k decks and I pulled them open, started flicking through the cards, that's when I went, do you know what? They've nailed this. I think that is the first product, Universes Beyond product, I got my hands on, and I went, they've nailed this. Everything. There was no I know there are some reskins in there, but they've done everything from the art style, from the flavor text, from the mechanics, even the basic lands. Like they just absolutely 40k'd it and went to town on it, and I loved every single second of it. That gave me the confidence to go, do you know what? I'm going to see what happens with this moving forward. Then they done a full set. They done Lord of the Rings. And I think it's one of my top favorite sets. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. My only concern is, coming back to what you were saying there, Wally, are we going to get to maybe the end of this year, beginning of next or mid next year? And are we going to start looking at the horizons of Magic the Gathering and particularly Standard? And are we going to end up sort of saying this feels like it's been watered down a little bit? I don't know. I think it's really interesting. Or are we gonna the same as my worries with Universes Beyond that have then been appeased or leveled out with 40k? Are we going to get to the end of the year and we're going to go, do you know what? They absolutely smashed every single one of these out of the park, and I'm looking forward to what they see around the corner. Obviously, I'm invested in 40k and I'm invested in Lord of the Rings. I'm not as invested in Final Fantasy, and I am invested in Marvel and Spider-Man, not as much as say some of the other IPs. So are we going to end up finding ourselves in this position where if it's your IP, you're going to be all over it, and if it's not, you're not going to enjoy it? Or are we going to end up getting to the point where I think we may get as we get to the end of the year, and there might just be a bit of product fatigue and maybe a bit of Universes Beyond fatigue? I mean, what are the thoughts on that, guys? You know, that idea that we might just, not just product fatigue, but we may have Universes Beyond fatigue. Because we haven't even spoke about secret lairs that are going to be up and coming. Because there's going to be more of this stuff, isn't there?
Yeah, it's going to be coming thick and fast. And I think the fatigue risk is real. I mean, we're all feeling it as a content creator. I'm feeling it in the sense that we are now, I think, probably 2/3 of our episodes are specifically related to card releases. Whereas in the past, we did a lot of homebrew stuff and that sort of thing. And it's definitely getting a bit harder to keep up with. I guess, I mean, have Wizards come out, and this is a question back to you before I sort of finish answering, have they come out and said that going forward, 50% of releases are going to be Universes Beyond?
Dom, I think they've
Myro
mentioned
has
that.
commented to say that's the way the pendulum is swinging currently, I believe.
Yeah, certainly is. I mean, the other question is like they're going to run out of decent IPs to do Universes Beyond with. So
we might get revisits. We might end up with I'd love them to return and do a full set for like 40k. For example.
Yeah, me too. Like,
there was a lot that they left untouched. I think
Orcs. They didn't touch Orcs. Elder.
How can you get the Orcs?
I know.
You know, there's plenty of stuff that they left out.
100%.
So hopefully they can return to that. So actually, yeah. So I think the Marvel one, you know, that's going to keep them going for a long time.
Well, they've got two years of that.
Yeah. If they're going to split it down like they have, so this is the Spider-Man set, you know, they can renew that license and do an awful lot more if they're doing it like this going forward. Maybe we'll get an Avengers set, an X-Men set, you know.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen? But I mean, what I would say is that in terms of Magic story, they've killed off all their villains or neutralized them all. You've had the Nicol Bolas defeated, Eldrazi defeated, Phyrexians defeated. So actually, having a little lull in the Magic sets might be a good thing if they can then build back up to some kind of
That's a
threat.
fair point.
Because at the moment, that might be why we ended up with sets like Thunder Junction, because they didn't have any kind of ongoing story as such. We've got the loot, you know, the Omen Paths, which we're named after, was a big part, but that was basically part of the Phyrexian invasion, right?
Yeah.
So you've got this loot, and they were building up to the space things. But if that gets resolved in the space set, which is coming later this year, the Edge of Eternities, then again we're going to have what's the next, you know, villain or motivation to fly around the universe going to be. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with.
Sure. No, like I think Magic, as the Magic IP, has to start with the story, and the story needs some kind of jeopardy, which in this context usually means a villain, as you say. And I have no issue with them bringing old villains back. I mean, the Phyrexians obviously just done, but the Eldrazi I think are really cool as a concept.
100%.
So let's explore that. Let's have some characters travel into the Blind Eternities or something. Like, I'm just literally thinking out loud here.
No, of course.
Notably, the Edge of Eternities is on the edge of the Blind Eternities, isn't it? So there's going to be a lot of worlds and things that kind of touch on, or maybe there'll be some little tentacle poking through. Who knows?
Well, maybe the team.
Well, maybe that then gives the opportunity to expand into, like, establish new planes, like, because I think my experience of speaking to people over the years is, particularly when they talk about older sets or older planes, they're really invested in the story and the plane more so than maybe sometimes just the cards, you know. So my first proper release, as I've said many times, was Throne of Eldraine, and I love the feel of it. I love the vibe of it. I love the artwork. You know, absolutely invested into it. Not just because of the nostalgia, because it's been my first one, but I really enjoyed it. Kamigawa and Neon Dynasty, I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm so glad we went back to that, and I actually weirdly liked that we had a modern version of it, because you've got the two extremes, and that's absolutely great. So I'm hoping that these type of things moving forward leads to new and exciting sets, but also we can go back to these traditional sets. I know it's always a bit of a meme, but like, oh, we're going back to Ravnica or whatever it is. But you can make new characters, expand the story into. We're obviously going through a period of time where a lot of the Planeswalkers got desparked, but why not there be a bit of a jeopardy behind this? Or we start to see, a new, not breed, but a new line of Planeswalkers that are coming through that managed to either avoid this or struck a deal with the Phyrexians or whatever, to build new villains building into this story, start piecing it all together. So, you can have that, Avengers Endgame type scenario where, do you know what I mean? Chandra, well, a lot of the maybe more traditional Planeswalkers, they find their sparks again. They come back together. You can have another Gatewatch sort of scenario. There's lots of things they can do, but you can expand by, I think it's that halfway house between leaning into what your history was, as well as changing and breathing into new area. And unfortunately, as much as Thunder Junction was what it was, is that going to be an instant classic that we're going to be going back to and be like, oh, I'm looking forward to Thunder Junction Mark II? I personally, look, I have no issues with the set. I really don't. But is there going to be excitement to go back to it? Probably not. No. But I tell you what,
we'll probably never go back, right?
No, but if I said to you guys, we're going back to Kamigawa, I'm pretty sure all three of us would be like, nice. This is going to be interesting. Exactly. And we will want a bit more of it or whatever it is, because these are classic planes, I don't have a problem with them going back to it. I love that we're going back to Tarkir. We were talking about this earlier. I love this. Put a modern spin on it. Great. I have no issues with that. Things have moved on since we were last in Tarkir or Lorwyn or wherever it, would be. Revisit these stories. Reinvest back into some of Magic the Gathering's IPs, by all means. Expand into new ones, by all means, as well. I think Magic the Gathering's IP is strong enough without Universes Beyond, is my personal opinion. But, let's get to the end of the year and let's have this conversation again, because our minds may change. I may hold my hands up and go, do you know what? I was wrong. I loved Spider-Man, and I, not saying that I'm not looking forward to it, but, I loved Spider-Man, and I loved all these Universes Beyond coming out, and, it's been fantastic, and I've really leaned into this. And do you know what? I wasn't interested in Final Fantasy, not really, but actually, I got hold of some of the cards, I played with some of them, and I thoroughly enjoyed them, and it made me want to go play Final Fantasy. Maybe we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and if that's the case, it's had the desired effect.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Long may and I sort of as a parting shot, maybe like the thing I enjoy most about Magic is the people I'm playing it with.
Yeah, that's one.
And if the if the pool of people I can play it with grows because people like Final Fantasy or Avatar or Assassin's Creed or whatever, then that is a good thing for me. I realise other people will have reservations for other reasons,
but
of course. It satisfies my criteria for enjoying Magic.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yep. I think that's a very fair comment. And if the Universes Beyond does one thing, I think has already done it, which is to bring new players into it, Paul. Like you said, it's building the community, and that's not a terrible thing, is it? Let's be honest.
Sure.
Awesome. Look, guys, I think we've touched on some really interesting subjects there. I'd be interested to see what happens and how this all settles down. I can't wait for Tarkir, man. I just can't wait for it, honestly. I'm so excited about it.
In a year's time, I might listen to this podcast and be like, how little we knew. Or maybe I'll be like, you know what, we were right.
Well, the problem is this time next year, obviously we would have gone through everything we're looking into now, and we'll be seeing into the future of what's going on. Hopefully that future involves a European Magicon. Please, Wizards, please.
Please.
I mean, in 5 years, Hasbro will have bought one of these IPs, and the Avatar will take a mask off, and it was Urza reborn all along.
Well, Dom, if that happens, then I will buy you a beer.
Okay. Sure.
Oh, that's easy peasy. I thought he was going to say eat your hat or something.
Oh, no.
If that happens, I will eat a hat. Just putting that on a record.
He will eat a ChadMagic cup.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. I'll grind it down a little bit, but I will get that down. Don't you worry. Look, Wally, thank you so much for jumping on with us, man. It's been too long, and it's so good to have you back on. I think you've made some really positive contributions, and it's so great to have you back on again. It really, really is.
Oh, thank you. And honestly, invite me on anytime. I love talking about Magic, so definitely just anytime you're short on a guest or someone bails last minute, just be like, yeah, we need you, bro.
Sure.
Like, genuinely.
We'll book you in for next week. You're on. But to everyone that's listening or watching, what are your thoughts on these latest sets? Do you think that Magic is too expensive, or are we just old men shouting at clouds? Is there too many Universes Beyond sets? What's the feeling and the vibe? Like, we'd love you guys to get in touch, get involved. Speak to us on the socials, and also, what do you want us to talk about next? We've got lots of really interesting subjects coming up in future pods. But what do you guys want to hear? Get in contact with us. Wally,
I've
again.
got one final thing to say.
No, go on, no, say away.
Every time you think your hobby is expensive, just look at what people who build model railways pay for their little plastic guys sweeping the tracks, and then you'll realise that actually it's cheap as chips.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
See, as a kid, I had a model railway, and I can remember the price of it then. It would be borrow from my parents of like, please, can I have my Christmas and birthday present for this one thing that's ridiculously expensive? So you make a really good point, actually, because model trains are really expensive. Guys, look, I hope you've all enjoyed today's pod. I hope it's been informative, and we'll let the dust settle over the next 6 months and see what happens. But please get in contact, and we'll go from there. Go check out, if you haven't already, go check out the ChadMagic guys. They are fantastic. I love their content. I'm really looking forward to seeing your Chicago stuff. And I'm looking forward to, we're playing some CDH on Sunday, actually, aren't we?
We are, yeah. So, I'm excited. I've updated my deck a little bit with some on the stack spice. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, baby.
Excellent. Fantastic. I was going to say, I'm looking forward to playing some, when we next catch up in the next con and playing some games, but we're going to be playing on Sunday, and I'm looking forward to that. I love playing CDH with you, 100%. Guys,
kill him first, Wally. Kill him first.
Of course, obviously, goes without saying.
I mean, I take my position in these games, and I know what I'm going into. It's absolutely fine. It's all good. Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, we've got some more pods coming up really, really soon. Some great guests planned and moving forward. But like I said earlier, what do you guys want us to talk about? Get in contact, and we'll go from there. But until the next podcast, Wally, thanks for jumping on again. Dom, I'll see you in the next one. Okay.
Enjoy.
See you later, guys.